Good morning. What is the cause of the existence of the universe? Is it some kind of God? The chessboard example will come up a little bit later. So on top of Batman is the Hindu Om symbol, which is supposed to be to do with the sound of the beginning of the universe. So that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at the question, does the universe have a cause? And is that cause God? I'll just move this out of the way. So, this is Philosophy Bites 9. The contingency or dependency cosmological arguments for the existence of God. I have borrowed some of Peter Vardy's PowerPoint. It's kind of mixed with my PowerPoint, so thanks to Peter Vardy for making this and sending this to me years ago from Heathrow College. So, the key word in this argument is the word contingent, which means dependent. So a contingent being or object relies for its existence for something outside itself. We could ask, what is the cause of the match? Obviously, the intention behind lighting a match might be to have a cigarette. My dad tells me an amazing story that when he met my mum in Glasgow, he had a lovely dance and had a few drinks, and he wrote her name down on a cigarette box, and he told me that he managed to lose a cigarette box. He had a phone number on it as well, and he lost it for a couple of days, and then he eventually found it. So my dad said to me, your existence is dependent upon that box of cigarettes. I wouldn't exist otherwise. So we could talk about, like, well, what caused the baby? Maybe if you're a scientist or an atheist, you might believe that eventually, if we go back and back and back and back in time, we evolved. We evolved from small animals, or our ancestors have the same ancestors as monkeys and chimpanzees. But then you can go back before that and say, well, what was the first life form? What caused that? Do you go back kind of infinitely? Question mark. So, the simplest version, Freddie Copleston SJ put forward what is probably the simplest cosmological argument in a debate with Bertrand Russell in 1947. I'm not going to go into the other forms of the argument at the minute. I'm just going to focus on Copleston's and just give some general overviews. I will pick up on Aquinas' argument later on, because Aquinas' argument is far more complicated. So, again, everything in the universe is contingent. Everything depends upon something else. From stars to trees to human beings might not have beens. They need not have existed and are dependent on something else for their existence. Nothing in the universe is non-dependent. So, the next step, a bit more complicated. The universe is simply the totality of contingent things and is itself contingent. Think about that line again. and see if you can question it in any way. The universe is simply the totality of contingent things, dependent things, and is itself dependent on something. This is the key step. It moves from saying that everything in the universe is contingent to the claim that the universe as a whole is contingent. So there are two statements here, and that there is a jump in the argument. Is there a flaw here that you might be able to spot? Because you're going to see on the next slide that yes, it can be attacked. Even if one accepts that everything in the universe is contingent, it would be possible to argue that the universe as a whole is necessary, and that everything within the universe depends on the universe as a necessarily existent totality. Is it probable that the universe is caused? Well, Hume and Russell criticised that last point that Copleston made. They say it's illogical to make the leap from saying everything in the universe has a cause to saying then, oh, there's only one cause as a whole, one divine being, one omnipotent, which means all powerful, transcendent, which means outside of space and time, one being. Just because we see that flower is caused, that monkey is caused, that volcano is caused, we then say, oh, therefore there's one cause of everything on the earth and everything in the universe. It's not logical, so it seems. Bertrand Russell and David Hume, well, Bertrand Russell in particular, said, maybe we shouldn't ask for an explanation of the universe. Maybe we should just say it's a brute fact. It just is. It just appeared. What's the cause of a baby? So, coming back to this point that Hume and Russell make, everything in the universe is caused, therefore there is one cause as a whole. A criticism of this, it says that it's like saying every human being has a mother, therefore there is one mother for the entire human race. So to say that God is the only cause is illogical. So, to recap, first step, everything in the universe is contingent. Second step, the universe is simply the totality of contingent, that's dependent, things, and is itself dependent or contingent. Given the universe is contingent or dependent, there must be something necessary on which it depends, namely God. A necessary being has to exist, and a contingent thing might not have existed. If my dad hadn't found that cigarette box, I might not have existed. But a necessary thing has to exist. Does it make sense as a concept? So, Bertrand Russell says, well, this idea that all talk of things within the universe are dependent doesn't really make sense. He does this because he claims that the very language of contingency implies there must be something necessary. He is effectively accusing Copleston of smuggling the conclusion in with the premise. Russell says that the universe just is. It's the ultimate brute fact and requires no explanation. Now, if Russell is right to reject the language of contingency or dependency, and if his claim that the universe is the ultimate brute fact is accepted, then his reply undermines Copleston's argument. So, this is where we come to the chessboard. Let you have a little look again. Oops, sorry, got my finger in the way. So the chessboard is a key part of this argument. Russell v. Copleston. The universe itself is simply a brute fact. If you aren't prepared to accept that the universe requires an explanation, then you are refusing to be checkmated, is Copleston's reply. Russell then fights back. The rules of your chessboard are already skewed in your favour. That's by the idea of demanding a necessary being to give a complete explanation. The idea of a necessary being. If we go back in time, if we take the domino chain example, when there's a domino chain, there's got to be a person that kicks it off, that is the first person to push the domino. The next question is, well, what caused them? Their ancestors. What caused them? We go back and back and back in time, and it's the same with the universe. So we go back to maybe the Big Bang, and we say, well, the Big Bang, does it make sense that it came out of nothing? Does there have to be something necessary that's always been there? And if God is really outside of space and time, then God is eternal. And God is the only eternal thing in the universe. Russell, as you can probably guess, isn't prepared to accept that. He says, well, why not just say the universe is necessary? The universe has just been there forever. Why come up with this idea of a God? Copleston's exasperation. Copleston accepts that if Russell refuses to even ask the question why there is a universe, then he cannot be checkmated. The acceptance of the universe as a brute fact rules out requiring an explanation. Jerry Hughes makes the point that any child of under 5 would see that the question, why is there a universe at all, is a reasonable one. Supporters of the argument claim that God is a better explanation than the brute fact of the universe. That's what it comes down to. So, look at this diagram. I've used some Escher pictures there. You can see the ants crawling around the infinity symbol. So, you have the Earth. Then you have two possible explanations. One is that a God outside of space and time, who's transcendent, causes the universe. That God is infinite. The second explanation is to think, well, maybe the universe itself just goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and there's no first cause. There's just what's called an infinite regress, infinitely going back in time. Now you have to decide which is the most likely possibility as far as you are concerned. Have a think about it, please. Do you think that the idea of an infinite God is a better ultimate explanation than an infinite universe? Many scientists would say that it does make sense that the Big Bang came out of nothing. Aristotle claimed that wasn't. Aristotle said, no, something cannot come from nothing. There must have been a cause of the Big Bang that's outside of time. One way of looking at it is to think of a train station. You walk into the train station and you arrive, and the train has already come into the station and is driving out. So you come to the station and all you can see is carriages going by and by, and you're waiting like for hours and hours and hours as these carriages go by and by, and you're saying, well, you think to yourself, well, there must be something that's different from the other carriages that's pulling the train, or I'm gonna eventually see a carriage at the end that's pushing the train. So the idea that God is actually different to everything else in the universe. Everything else is actually caused by something else, except God. Infinite universe or infinite God? You decide. Is the universe a brute fact, or is God a brute fact? Oops. I almost went on to Aquinas there. I'm not going to go on to Aquinas at the minute. So that's one version of the cosmological argument. It's a straightforward version, but it's nowhere near as complicated as the Aquinas' arguments, because Aquinas really follows the complexity of Aristotle's teachings, and I will go back into that at a later date. I hope you like this video and it's made you think a little bit about the existence of the universe. This is in the philosophy of religion. I've been concentrating mostly on ethics, so this is philosophy of religion. Hope you like it, and please leave a like or please share it with anybody that might be interested. Bye.